Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is Israel and Hezbollah are at it again. The current round of saber rattling is neither surprising nor historic. But what is historic is the reaction of the Arab world leadership. With few exceptions, Arab leadership has been silent as Israel and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the Islamic extremist Shiite military group based out of Lebanon, and the exchange between Israel and Hezbollah. History is in the making. Tensions are high in the Middle East. That is not historical. What is making history is that in the current exchange and saber rattling between Israel and Hezbollah, the leadership of the Arab world has mostly been silent, and some have voiced their support for Israel against Hezbollah. That's historical. That shows massive change in the region. Don't get your hopes up. Normalization with Israel or just normalization, is a euphemism used by many in the Middle East to put the kibosh on public interactions and diplomacy between Israel and the Arab countries in the neighborhood. The forces for normalization are gaining momentum, principally because the major counterforce to normalization is Iran. Many leaders in the Arab world, including the intelligentsia, are rabidly anti-Iranian. They see Iran as a threat to the entire region. They also know that Israel has the ability to check Iran, and so they are siding with Israel. In the case of Hezbollah, it becomes vividly clear. Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. Hezbollah gets its weapons, its training, its money, all from Iran. Hezbollah gets its commands from Iran. For instance, Hezbollah has at least 130,000 rockets. They will only be unleashed when Iran gives the word. On September 1st, the foreign minister of Bahrain tweeted in Arabic and then tweeted in Google translation of his Arabic, of that very own tweet, that Hezbollah and Lebanon are simply wrong and Israel is correct. Prince Khalifa tweeted that Lebanon was wrong while, quote, standing and watching battles take place on its borders, unquote. He wrote that the decision to make war, peace, or stability should be the decision of the state. He celebrated Israel and the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for slapping down Iran. He called it, quote, Iran's ugly face, unquote. Then the Bahraini Foreign Minister Khalifa concluded saying, Netanyahu knows what to do against Hezbollah. The relative silence of the rest of the Arabic leadership was telling. In the past, the response was automatic. There was a wall-to-wall condemnation of Israel. But now things are changing. There is, of course, blowback. Iran aside, there are people who are wary of change, especially embracing Israel, even if informally. Political leaders and diplomats believe that good terms with Washington require some type of relationship with Israel. They rightly understand that the United States is pushing this normalization as a way to avoid a larger conflict in the region. But sometimes the blowback needs to be managed. For instance, Morocco's first Holocaust memorial, located just outside of Marrakesh, the country's largest city, has been destroyed. After a year of construction, the memorial was almost completed when a bulldozer hired by the local municipality came and mowed it all down. Morocco's Holocaust memorial was sponsored by a German group dedicated to teaching the lessons of the Holocaust and creating bridges between people. The name of the group is Micah Halpern. The memorial received media coverage, and the media coverage caused the blowback. The ostensible reason for its destruction was that the construction was not legal. The real reason was that those who were challenging the memorial claimed that their government is getting too close to Israel, and this memorial was further proof. The shame is that Jews in the Arab world were indeed murdered under the Nazis. They were attacked, ghettoized, and even deported under the Nazis. This was intended to be a memorial to those Jews and to the LGBT community that was also targeted by the Nazis. Micah Halpern is raising money to rebuild Morocco. Normalization with Israel comes with risks, there's no doubt about it. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And as we see sometimes, the local extremists have to be mollified, but still 2 steps forward. I've also been thinking about Iran, as I often do. Iranian youths work very hard to break through their government's block on the internet. the Iranian government has shut down almost all forms of contact and any access to the West through the internet. The World Wide Web, aka www. The web they are permitted and advised to use is the Iranian web, and it's nothing but a cheap facsimile of the original World Wide Web. Iranians want to jump on the World Wide Web's West plan, and there are a lot of them out there. They have gone to great lengths to end around their government, spending long hours attempting to bypass governmental blocks. One method that they found is VPNs, which are virtual personal networks. Teens, tweens, 20 and 30-somethings from Iran use VPNs, the virtual personal networks, to artificially make it appear as if the user were located somewhere else, somewhere other than the land of the verboten www. Here's how. Let's say you live in Tehran. When you go online, you click onto a VPN, and it shows that you are in Los Angeles. The Iranian can now surf the net, and no one will know. It sounds so simple to do, but the bigger problem is that VPNs are overloaded in Iran. So many people want to get on them in Iran that it can take an hour and you can even before you even begin. And that so many users cause servers to be slow, or servers regularly get shut down, or even you get bounced off of them. Iranian leadership does not have the same restrictions as their citizens. Iran's president and foreign minister tweet constantly on the www, in Twitter. Even the supreme leader, or at least the supreme leader's office, tweets regularly. Why not just use the Iranian www if getting on the World Wide Web is such a headache, you ask? The answer is simple, as it is desperate. The Iranians use the internet because they want to learn what's happening in the West. That's a good sign. And that's something they cannot do under the watchful, restricting eye of their leadership. Iranian youth not only have to deal with computer stress, they also have to live under economic stress. The official Iranian number on unemployment is 12% of the population. That is pretty high for any developed nation. But it makes sense when you realize that Iran is facing shrinking exports, courtesy of US sanctions. Some of Iran's longest standing and most important industries, like Persian carpets, Persian textiles, are, not to mention oil and high tech, have taken tremendous hits with the sanctions. The youth of Iran have been hit terribly by the unemployment. If the country's unemployment rate is 12%, unemployment amongst youth is 28%, more than double the official numbers. It's so bad that even the masters of spin and secrecy cannot hide the problem. Official government figures show that the real problems are for Iran, that 28% unemployment of youth of Iran really means that university graduates can't find jobs, especially coveted tech jobs in the general market and business worlds. The main employer in Iran has become the government of Iran. And while it's an important way of injecting money into society, it's never a healthy indicator of a growing economy. All the more so in Iran. Once upon a time, not too very long ago, one of the largest industries in Iran was the metal industry, from mining to production. Today, 10% of the 22 million workers in Iran are in the metal industry, and the metal industry accounts for most of Iran's factories. There are 8,840 mines in Iran. Those mines produce iron, copper, aluminum. According to the US Department of Commerce, they produce 25 million tons of steel annually, exporting to Thailand, Iraq, Indonesia, and the United Arab Emirates. As impressive as those numbers might sound, the industry today is just a shell of its former self, and it's getting worse. The currency of Iran is the rial, and like many other aspects of Iranian economy, US sanctions against Iran have hurt their treasury. In order to survive the tremendous inflation that they are suffering, Iranian leadership has decided to lop off 4 zeros from the rial. Imagine how high inflation is if you could just lop off 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 zeros. The announcement was made by the Iranian government spokesman. That would mean in US terms that $10,000 would immediately become $1. To get a sense of what has happened to the rial and the economy of Iran, look at the rial over the last 4 years. In 2015, $1 was worth 32,000 rials. Today, the official exchange rate, is $1 is worth 120,000 rials. Iran's inflation is so high, we have no idea how high it really is. There are official numbers of 50.4%, but we know that the numbers aren't true. Unofficial numbers put Iranian inflation at hyperinflation, which is officially defined as over 50%. The previous official inflation rate was 52%. But that's just another example of a corrupt government at work. In the heat of devastating sanctions against them, Iranian leadership really believes that the world will believe that their inflation rate is officially dropped to 2%, by 2%, highly unlikely. Iran is suffering, and the group most hurt by the current situation is the youth of Iran. History has shown us that youth are a bulwark for every revolution in the modern world. How much more can Iranian youth take? Their frustration and unemployment may just be the foundation of a future uprising against an oppressive Iranian leadership. Coming up next, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. First up is from the Jerusalem Post. As you know, I write a regular column for the Jerusalem Post. This one is by Anna Aronheim and is dated September 9th, 2019. It's entitled, IDF Denies Hezbollah Shot Down Surveillance Drone. Subtitled, Hezbollah said it confronted the drone and brought it down near the southern Lebanese village of Ramiyah. This is how Aronheim begins. The IDF denied claims that Hezbollah shot down a drone in pre-dawn hours of Monday over South Lebanon, stating that a small surveillance drone crashed. According to the military, the UAV fell in southern Lebanon while performing reconnaissance operations. There was no concern that the Lebanese Shiite group got hold of any intelligence from the drone. Hezbollah, meanwhile, said that they had confronted the Israeli drone with appropriate weapons as it was heading towards the town of Ramiyah. The wreckage is now in the hands of Hezbollah's fighters. The Iranian-backed terrorist group said in the statement, the drone came down outside the village where Hezbollah had dug their flagship 1 kilometer-long cross-border tunnel that infiltrated several dozen meters into northern Israel. The author now quotes Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. The column continues with Nasrallah's statements. Retaliation over drones will be in kind and will be at its own time and according to its own circumstances. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah warned. Nasrallah said while the flare-up with Israel at the border was over, the episode had launched a new phase in which the Iran-backed group no longer had red lines. Now the author concludes, the two countries also have an unresolved maritime border dispute over a triangle area of sea around 860 square kilometers, which extends along several blocks for exploratory offshore drilling Lebanon put for tender 2 years ago. The column is more informative than it is opinion. This information is so important for us to have informing our own opinions of what's going on in Lebanon and in Hezbollah. Second up is a column from the Canadian Jewish News. It's entitled BDS Campaign Targeting Toronto Business Backfires, and it's by Paul Lungen, dated September 6, 2019. The column shows that the BDS campaign to hurt a Jewish store selling Israeli items backfired and instead drove more business to the store than they had ever received. Lungen begins, it's a safe bet to say that Firas el-Najim's boycott efforts didn't go the way he hoped they would. About a week after the anti-Israel agitator posted videos on his Facebook page calling for a boycott of Toronto business that support Israel, the owner of one of the targets of his campaign, the Taste of Israel grocery store, said sales had more than doubled. And if the comments section of his pro-BDS Facebook page are any indication, the response there didn't go so well either. Many of the commenters commended El-Najim for telling them about businesses that they can patronize. Others took aim at BDS, calling it anti-Semitic and propagandistic. One person came up with a catchy phrase, they do the labeling, we do the buying. The piece ends with another great example of the BDS movement failing. Another post on the same Facebook page calls on supporters to boycott Gassner Dental, a dental clinic in the heart of the Jewish community. That boycott call is accompanied by a photograph of the clinic taken when it featured a large poster announcing that it proudly supports Walk with Israel, the solidarity march that was held in May. In one of the posts calling for a boycott of the Taste of Israel, the organization noted a visit to the premises by Liberal MP Michael Levitt in the company of Israeli MK Sharon Haskell. I thought it was worth pointing out. Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I want to show 3 cartoons today. The first is by Vladimir Krzhevensky from the Ukraine, published on politicalcartoons.com, and it's entitled Tourists as Targets, and is dated September 2nd, 2019. Tourists are at an archaeological site, but they aren't people. They're actually cut-out targets with bullseyes. One even has a camera. No tagline. The picture tells it all. Next up is a Pictoon from Powerline blog from September 9th, 2019. It is 2 pictures, a then and now. Then is the year 1975. Kids are piled in the back of a pickup truck. No seatbelts, no protective harnesses. Some are sitting low, some kneeling, some sitting high. The second image is now. The image is of today. 3 children strapped in the back seats with seatbelts. Not only are there seatbelt harnesses, each child is wrapped in bubble wrap. Times have changed, not just in safety, no matter what we assumed to be the foundation stones of our community. In everyday life, as in the international community, times have changed. So too with the world outlook on Israel. Last is another cartoon from Powerline blog, posted September 9th, 2019. 2 women are chatting at the proverbial water cooler at work. They're both wearing guns. One is wearing a machine gun, the other is wearing a pistol. The woman with the machine gun says, "I don't know if the open carry policy has made this a safer place to work, but it certainly has reduced sexual harassment." In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Another battle is being waged in the Middle East. The intensity keeps rising. The battle is over food. For years, Arabs have accused Israel of appropriating their food and making it Israeli. They claim that falafel is not Israeli. It is Arab food. They claim that hummus is not Israeli. It's Arab food. The assertion is that just about any of the foods created by Israeli chefs in any Israeli restaurant or in any show is in fact a ripoff of Arab food. Now labana, or laban, a goat cheese yogurt, is on the proverbial chopping block. Enemies of Israel say that Zionists would create their own culture, should create their own culture, not expropriate it from the Arab culture that surrounds them. They are claiming that appropriating their foods is another example of Israeli occupation. Israelis, they say, are not only stealing Arab land, but Arab culture, and Arabs and Israelis are stealing now Arab and Palestinian food too. Israeli chefs and Israeli culinary creativity have become world famous. And while many of the dishes borrow from the region, to suggest that Israelis stole the culture is preposterous. These attackers want Israel to be seen by the world as interlopers, replanted into the Middle East from Europe. But in reality, most Israelis are descendants of Jews from Arab lands, not from Europe. Part of Israel's culture comes from Europe, but much more of Israeli culture, including food, originates in the Arab world. Blending these traditions is what makes Israel so interesting and so very Israeli. A fatwa is an Islamic edict declared by a leading authority. Shiite theologian, the Grand Ayatollah Qazi al-Hariri, is held in very high regard by Iraqi Shiites, and he has declared a fatwa forbidding U.S. troops to step foot in Iraq. The Grand Ayatollah called on Iraqi forces to attack and stop all U.S. forces. The edict comes after the media from all over the world covered stories that described Israel's attack on Shiite bases in Iraq, bases that are affiliated with Iran. 2 Israeli officials confirmed that Israel was responsible for those attacks. Many locals in the Middle East do not countenance any non-believer anywhere in the Middle East, not in any Arab lands. The U.S. brings out vicious animus in some people. Over the years, there have been numerous fatwas involving the United States. The Grand Ayatollah is not forging new ground. Avichai Adrai Israel's spokesman in Arabic, warned that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad will, quote, pay a heavy price, unquote, for his continued aid to Iran on Syrian soil. Israel's warning was issued after an attempt by pro-Iranian Shiite militants to launch a missile attack from Syria into Israel. In a Twitter post, the IDF spokesman wrote in Arabic, "We warn the regime of Bashar al-Assad that it will pay a heavy price for allowing the Iranians and Shiite militias to operate from within its territory, turning a blind eye and even cooperating with them," end quote. The tweet continued, "This thing," meaning your rocket operations, "is not hidden from us. You have been warned." Amazon opened their division in Israel recently, and their vendors were informed that the opening comes only days before the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. A priority should be given to items connected to the holiday. Amazon in Israel is guaranteeing 2 to 3 day delivery. When someone in Israel enters the online site, it will be recognized as someone coming from Israel. This much has been much anticipated, and the Amazon launch has been a big deal. It's been on again and off again, and even recently as the few days before the opening, they pushed it off yet again. But in the end, Amazon arrived in Israel. Shiite Islam has a holy day named Ashura. Ashura means 10 in Arabic. Ashura is the 10th day of the first month in the Muslim calendar, the month of Muharram. It commemorates the Battle of Karbala, when Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of Muhammad, was killed in 1060. Shiites, which means most of Iranians, and Hezbollah mourn on this day. Speaking to all Shiites about Ashura, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said about him and his allies, including Iran, were in the middle of a major campaign. He used military terminology to invoke a connection between them and the Battle of Karbala. He said, "We are in the midst of a major campaign, and the United States and Israel are trying to outflank us," unquote. He said in a speech to mark the Muslim holiday of Ashura. The leader of this camp, the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and its center is in Iran, he said. He added that tonight and tomorrow we will tell Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump that we are people not affected by blockade, sanctions, poverty, and hunger, unquote. It looks like the Shiites have a plan. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. I want to address the idea of BDS, which is now illegal, yes, illegal in 31 states in the United States. People ask me all the time, how could BDS be illegal? How can a state pass a law against BDS? Isn't it freedom of speech? That can't be illegal, after all. The answer is pretty simple. People think BDS is about speech, but no, it's not. BDS is about action, not speech. Just take a second and look at the name. BDS, what does it stand for? B for boycott, D for divestment, S for sanctions. Boycotts are illegal, and the state may not boycott. The reason for that is it violates legal rights of free trade. Free trade is actually a constitutional right under Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution of the United States. That article has 54 words. It's very short and very clearly written. That is why a state may not advocate BDS, why boycotts are illegal. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please, indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. and we thank you for your kind support.